You know that one neighbor who thinks the world is her property? That was her. The HOA president with a smile as fake as her roses. Every morning she'd cut straight across my front lawn, heels stabbing my grass like she was walking a red carpet she didn't own. At first, it was annoying. Then, it became personal. Because when you've spent months wiring your sprinklers, aligning your soil and building something with care, watching someone trample it like it's nothing, it gets under your skin. I told her once, I told her twice, but the third time, when she looked me in the eye and said, "Maybe if your yard wasn't in the way," that's when I knew. She wasn't just crossing my lawn. She was crossing the line. And I was done playing nice. I'm an electrician by trade. Precision is my language. I measure things down to the millimeter. So when it came to dealing with her arrogance, I wasn't going to yell. I was going to engineer the perfect lesson. But first you have to understand something. This wasn't just a few footprints. This woman, let's call her Karen, made it a daily parade. Morning coffee, through my yard. Evening HOA walks, through my yard. When guests came over, she led them through too, like it was her personal shortcut. One morning, I caught her dog digging up my flower bed. When I confronted her, she laughed. "Oh, relax," she said, "it's just grass. It'll grow back." That was the moment my patience officially expired. I recorded everything, photos, dates, videos. Because people like her, they only understand proof. I posted a simple wooden sign on the edge of my lawn, "Private property, no trespassing." The next morning, I woke up to find it knocked over. Not by wind, not by accident. By her, smiling, sipping her latte, walking right over it. I watched from my window, camera recording. She didn't even glance up. To that night, I sat in my garage, surrounded by wires, motion sensors, and timers. Things most people see as parts, but I see as potential. That's when the idea sparked. Literally. If she loved shortcuts so much, I'd give her one she'd never forget. I spent 3 nights designing it. A motion-triggered sprinkler system, but not just any sprinklers. Precision nozzles, timed jets, and a surge valve that could launch water like a mini fire hose. And to make it even better, a backup camera that would capture every second of her reaction. All hidden under the grass. Invisible. Perfect. By the 4th night, everything was in place. Power lines connected, sensors buried, system armed, and then I waited. To the next morning, 7:42 a.m., like clockwork. Karen appeared, floral dress, sunglasses, coffee cup. I held my breath. Her heels clicked onto the edge of my grass. 3 steps in. Sensor 1, active. A soft mechanical click. She didn't even notice. Then came the second step. Sensor 2. And then, "Ows!" A jet of water exploded from the ground, hitting her square in the legs. She screamed, a mix of shock and fury, stumbling back. But before she could recover, 2 more jets fired. One from the left, one from the right, drenching her dress, her hair, her coffee, everything. I was watching from my porch, pretending to fix a light. She spun around, shrieking, mascara running, hair plastered to her face. "What the hell is this?" she shouted. I shrugged. "Automatic watering system." "Sorry, private property. Remember." Her face turned red. "You can't just... You'll regret this," she screamed. But as she stormed off, slipping on the wet grass, I couldn't help but smile. Because she had no idea. That was only phase 1. When she disappeared around the corner, I looked at the footage from the camera. Perfect angle, crystal clear, cinematic. Her reaction, priceless. But something told me she wouldn't stop there, and I was afternoon, a note appeared on my mailbox. Anonymous, it said. "Your little prank won't save you from HOA violations." That's when I realized, this wasn't over. She was planning something bigger. Something public. But she forgot one thing. You don't pick a fight with someone who knows how to wire the whole neighborhood. And by the time she tried her next move, my surprise would make sure she never crossed anyone's lawn again. I should have known she wouldn't take that humiliation quietly. Karen wasn't just any neighbor. She was the queen of the HOA. The kind who thought a clipboard gave her divine authority. The day after the sprinkler incident, the neighborhood Facebook page exploded. Unruly behavior on Maple Drive. Unapproved water installations. Unsafe landscaping modifications. Every post came from her. She didn't mention my name, but everyone knew. And just to make it official, I received a printed HOA violation notice, taped to my door. unauthorized lawn alterations and unsafe water discharge. I laughed, because I knew what this was. Not law, not safety. It was revenge. Still, I played it smart. I filed a written response, short, professional, polite. Explained that my property was not HOA controlled. That her authority stopped at her own fence line. But that kind of logic doesn't work on people like Karen. They don't hear facts, they hear challenges. By day 3, she showed up in person. Sunglasses, clipboard. And that same smug smile. Just a friendly inspection, she said. Behind her were 2 HOA board members. Her followers, of course, nodding like puppets. She paced around my lawn, tapping her pen against her pad, pretending to measure the sprinklers I'd installed. You know, she said, we can fine you for creating a neighborhood hazard. I smiled. You mean the same hazard that waters my own grass? She blinked. Then glared. Oh, you think you're funny? I didn't reply. Because I'd already decided. This wasn't going to be a shouting match. This was going to be strategic. That night, I pulled up her OA's public charter. Turns out, she'd been using funds for beautification projects, fancy term for lawn art she put in her own yard. I printed every record, every receipt, every questionable purchase. Then, I filed a complaint. Not to the HOA, to the county office. If she wanted to play it official, I'd make it official. Cue the next morning, my security cameras caught something. Karen, on my lawn, again, but this time she wasn't walking through, she was spraying something, a white mist, pesticide, on my grass, on purpose. I ran outside, phone recording. Hey, what do you think you're doing? She jumped, startled. Then smiled, trying to play innocent. Oh, I'm just preventing weeds. We have HOA regulations about shared property. I cut her off. This isn't shared property, Karen. And that isn't your job. She tried to talk. But she could see the camera in my hand. Red light blinking. That's when the smile dropped. And she walked off, muttering under her breath. But she didn't realize that was strike 2. And I was already preparing for strike 3. Two days later, a white pittled into her driveway. County inspection crew. They checked her yard, her porch, her HOA office. Turns out, misusing HOA funds isn't a beautification project. It's a violation. She was furious. She marched straight to my property that afternoon. You called them, didn't you? She hissed. I didn't deny it. I didn't confirm it either. I just looked at her. Collected. You brought this on yourself, Karen. She jabbed her finger toward my chest. You think you're smart, don't you? You'll regret this. I watched her stomp away, heels digging into my grass again. The same route, same arrogance. But what she didn't know was that I'd upgraded the system. This wasn't about sprinklers anymore. This was precision revenge. I wired new motion sensors, not for water this time. For sound. A high-frequency tone generator, harmless but loud enough to make anyone jump. I paired it with flashing garden lights that triggered automatically when movement crossed the lawn. The next morning, I armed the system and waited inside with coffee. 7:41 am, right on time, there she was. She stepped onto my lawn, muttering to herself. The first sensor beeped. A second later, a sharp, shrill tone pierced the air. She flinched, covering her ears. Then, the garden lights exploded in color. Red, yellow, blue, like a disco from nowhere. She stumbled back, waving her arms. Neighbors came out to see what was happening. Turn it off, she screamed. But I just stood on my porch, pretending to look confused. What's wrong? Oh, that's the automated deer deterrent system. Works wonders, her face twisted in rage. You can't just... But she stopped mid-sentence when she realized the neighbors were recording her meltdown. Phones pointed. Laughing quietly. That was the first time I'd ever seen her speechless. She stormed off soaked, humiliated, and now, defeated in front of her own audience. That evening, my phone buzzed with messages. Screenshots. Comments. Apparently, someone had uploaded the video of an outburst to the local community page. The title read, HO President vs. The Electrician. Guess who won? Within hours, the post went viral in the neighborhood. Over 50 comments. People cheering, laughing, thanking me for finally standing up to her. For the first time in months, I felt peace. But I also knew Karen wasn't the type to quit. Her pride wouldn't let her. So when I saw her car idling by the corner that night, headlights off, I knew she was planning her next move. And I was ready. Because the final lesson I had for her wasn't just clever. It was unforgettable. The sun was low, stretching golden light across the manicured lawns of Maple Grove Estates. Birds chirped, sprinklers hissed. Everything looked perfect, almost too perfect. But underneath that peaceful surface, something was about to break. The man everyone called, the quiet electrician, stood behind his living room blinds, watching the sidewalk like a hawk. His jaw was tight, hands clasped behind his back. For weeks he'd tolerated it, the footsteps, the tire marks, the gossiping voices drifting across his yard. The HOA had rules for everyone, except, apparently, for the who made them. Karen, she wasn't just a neighbor. She was a storm dressed in pastels. Loud, entitled, obsessed with control. She ruled the HOA board like a queen in her own kingdom, her rules carved into every mailbox and yard. And she hated that one man on her street, the one who refused to obey her beautification guidelines. She called his yard an eyesore. He called it his property. But when she started cutting across his lawn, dragging her little dog and gossiping friends through his grass every single morning, he knew it wasn't about convenience. It was a message. And messages like that deserved an answer. So, that morning, he had finished it, his project. He called it the reminder. Hidden under the flawless green grass lay a motion. Triggered sprinkler system unlike anything the neighborhood had ever seen. He'd wired it himself. Ultra-sensitive sensors, high-pressiony. Delay just long enough to lure in the target. Now, all he had to do was wait. The sound came first. The sharp click of a metal gate. Then laughter. Karen's laughter, shrill and confident, the kind that filled the air like nails on glass. He stayed perfectly still. Through the blinds, he saw her in her pastel pink tracksuit, sunglasses on, dog leash dangling, marching right across the line of his freshly cut lawn, her sneakers crushing the morning dew. She didn't even glance down. The man's lips twitched. 1 step, 2 steps, and then, whass! A jet of freezing water blasted straight from the ground, hitting her square in the chest. Karen screamed. The dog yelped. Then a second jet fired from the other side, catching her legs. Within seconds, she was soaked. Hair plastered to her face, pink fabric darkened to red. She slipped, stumbled, tried to run. But every time she moved, another sprinkler burst open, chasing her across the lawn like a storm of vengeance. Her screams echoed through the neighborhood. Windows opened, neighbors peeked, phones recorded, and the quiet electrician, he just smiled from behind his blinds. But Karen wasn't done, not even close. That afternoon, her SUV screeched to a stop in front of his driveway. She stomped up the porch steps, dripping fury in designer shoes, waving her phone. "You think this is funny? You just assaulted me," she yelled, face red with rage. He opened the door halfway, calm as stone. "Assault? On my property?" He tilted his head. "You mean the property you trespassed on?" Her jaw dropped. He gestured toward the lawn. "You've been warned, Karen. The signs are up. The grass is mine. Next time, maybe try the sidewalk. It's safer." She sputtered. I'll take this to the board. You'll regret this." He chuckled softly. "I am the board, remember. You made me treasurer last month." Karen froze. The realization hit her like thunder. He stepped closer, his tone calm but cold. "And since the bylaws say all landscaping modifications must be approved by the EA." He smiled faintly. "I guess you just approved it." The look on her face was priceless. She turned, stormed off the porch, muttering threats. The whole neighborhood was still watching. Some were laughing. Others just nodded, silently cheering. That night, the electrician sat on his porch, a cup of coffee in hand, staring at the stars. The sprinklers were quiet again, resting, their job done. For the first time in months, no one crossed his yard. No one dared. But the real surprise came days later, when a motion sensor light flickered on, not on his lawn, but on Karen's. He looked across the street and saw her crouched beside her mailbox, whispering to someone in the dark. A small trench was dug along the sidewalk. A hose ran across it. He grinned. So, she was trying to retaliate. He watched silently, amused, as she adjusted her garden hose, aiming it at the path where he usually walked. She probably thought she was clever, waiting to drench him as revenge. But she didn't know he had cameras everywhere. He let her finish. Let her hide behind her car, holding her phone, ready to record her little payback. Then he stepped out. Calm, confident. The moment his foot hit the sidewalk, the sprinkler on her side blasted. But not at him. The water shot backward, bouncing off a hidden deflector plate he'd quietly installed days ago, right into her face. Karen shrieked again. Neighbors laughed again. He smiled again. Because this time, she couldn't complain. The system on her property had done the job. By the next week, her shortcut stopped. Her dog took the long way. Her gossip circle found a new target. And the HOA, it quietly voted for new guidelines, banning anyone from walking across another resident's lawn without permission. A small rule, but one written in wet ink and hard lessons. The electrician never bragged, never gloated, but every time he passed that spot, he smiled faintly at the faint outline of water stains on her driveway. A silent Mida that even queens can't rule over common sense. The lawn stayed green. The sensors stayed sharp. And every morning, as the sun rose over Maple Grove, one man sipped his coffee with quiet satisfaction, knowing that sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's perfectly timed. And just wet enough to make sure they never forget.